Hello guys, and welcome back to this channel. Today we are going to talk about the Sambian in Papua New Guinea. Alright, so nowadays, or I should say starting from the 90s, there has been what Gilbert Hertz has called a sexual revolution. To understand this sexual revolution, we have to talk about the ritualized homosexuality Gilbert Hertz talks about. So let's go back in time and before the 60s, okay? We are in Papua New Guinea, and populations there are very fascinating, I should say that. Very fascinating because what happened was that, women, as in many other, if not all, traditional societies would bring out the child. However, women were thought or were believed to contaminate the son. Okay, so this form of contamination occurs through the blood. Women were believed to have a power called Tingu, and Tingu is reinforced, according to this belief, is reinforced through the menses, right? So every time a woman has a menstruation, the Tingu gets reinforced. But this Tingu is also the weapon, the tool through which women exercise a certain form of power over men and specifically their own children. So once the boy reaches the age of 10, there's a process that could last 10-15 years, and it does occur in stages, but the process is relatively simple. The first thing that happens is that a piece of cane gets inserted into its nose to the point of bleeding. Right? And that is the first phase of purification and detachment from the women's power, the Tingu. The second thing that happens is that these young boys at the age of 10 or around the age of 10 have to basically practice oral sex to adult men. By practicing oral sex, what they really need to do is ingesting, swallowing their semen. The semen of adult men in this tribe is considered to have jurungdu. Jurungdu is the male power, and it's the male power through which the dissociation from the mother and the female power starts or is achieved, because it's both. And jurungdu is also the power that will transform the boy into a man and will keep the man from fully satisfying the woman, because the woman was considered this almost venomous plant, I would say, or on a par with that, right? Where there's power that gets exercised, and men have to acquire their own power and transform themselves into adult men who can still have control over their own life, over their own choices. Now, all of this was basically how the process into manhood would be achieved, and then this man would decide to get married, and on the first night of the wedding, the first night of the union with his wife, the wife would practice oral sex to him in a way to rebalance the power, or in a way to purify herself of the power she has, that she still keeps on having, because there's no literature that tells us that women do lose their tingu. But it's kind of like a rebalance in a form of submission, in a certain sense, towards the husband, the now husband. And again, after this, the man would get another piece of cane stick into his nose and bleed again. In a way to separate the powers and also retain his own power, which is fascinating, I would say. Now, this happened until the 60s, and then the missionaries came, right? And the missionaries always come with themselves all the Western mentality, right? On what is a woman, how you should treat a woman, how you should think about a woman, and how you should think about relationships. And so between the 60s and the 70s, all of these practices that allowed the transformation from boys into men or into manhood slowly but surely diminished to the point of disappearing. And then in the 90s, Papua New Guineans started to practice the so-called love marriage, which is basically a more balanced sort of union where you don't need to undergo all of that process, and men and women are thought to be pretty much equal. Now, besides all of this being extremely fascinating, at least to me, it's also interesting how, you know, we ended up in this place, right? How missionaries have practiced equality between men and women, and in some of the most Catholic countries, for instance, this type of this type of equality is not even acknowledged, and I'm gonna just say that very bluntly, right? We have seen priests, and I'm talking mostly about what I know the best, which is Catholic Church in certain countries. We have seen some priests also saying, you know, if your husband beats you, then you should talk to him, not get a divorce, you know. So there's always a big picture to keep in mind in here. And I'm not saying that the Catholic Church says this, but there are some priests that do. But with that being said, let me stop here and ask you to comment. So if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and if you want to comment, here you go down to the section below and leave us your thoughts. We'll talk next time in a new video. Bye guys.